The rusted Honda Civic coughed into the parking lot like a dying animal, and Darius Whitmore's laughter cut through the afternoon air like a knife. "Oh my God, is that thing even legal?" he howled, pointing at the vehicle that looked like it had been assembled from junkyard scraps. The hood was primer grey, the doors were mismatched shades of faded red, and the rear bumper was literally held together with duct tape and zip ties. Black smoke puffed from the exhaust with each labored revolution of the engine. "That's Mr. Vasquez's car," his friend Kyle muttered, shifting uncomfortably. "I know whose car it is," Darius said, pulling out his phone. "This is Instagram gold." Ernesto Vasquez, the school janitor, was climbing out of the driver's seat, his weathered hands gripping the door for support. He had to be pushing 70, with silver hair and the kind of deep wrinkles that came from decades of hard labor. His Navy work uniform was faded and worn, the name patch on his chest barely legible. "Yo, Mr. V!" Darius called out, his voice dripping with mock concern. "You know there's a junkyard about 2 miles from here. They might actually pay you to take that thing off your hands." Several students waiting for their rides turned to look. Some laughed nervously. Others pretended not to hear, suddenly very interested in their phones. Ernesto didn't respond. He just reached into the back seat and pulled out his worn canvas lunch bag, the same one he carried every single day. Darius had seen it 1,000 times, seen this old man eating alone in the maintenance office, seen him emptying trash cans during lunch, seen him mopping up spills in the hallway. "I'm serious." "Man," Darius continued, warming to his audience, "that car is a safety hazard. What if it breaks down with a student in it? The school could get sued. My father's on the board. Maybe I should mention it." "Dude, just stop," Kyle said quietly. "Stop what?" "I'm looking out for everyone's safety." Darius raised his phone and snapped a photo as Ernesto closed the car door. The old man's face remained expressionless, but something in his eyes, a flicker of hurt, quickly masked, made Darius feel a momentary pang of something. Not quite guilt. Discomfort, maybe. But the feeling passed quickly when he looked at his phone screen. The photo was perfect. The ramshackle car, the old man in his janitor's uniform, the contrast with the gleaming luxury vehicles in the student parking lot behind him. Darius's own BMW M4 was visible in the background, a $75,000 reminder of the distance between their worlds. He typed rapidly, "When you don't invest in your education, this is your future. Reality check. Stay in school. Life lessons posted." Within 30 seconds, the likes started rolling in. Comments appeared. "Brutal but true. This is why I'm studying LMAO. You're kind of an asshole," Kyle said, but there was no real heat in it. Kyle would never actually challenge him. Nobody would. Darius's father, Victor Whitmore, owned half the commercial real estate in the city. He donated the new athletic complex, the library wing, and personally funded scholarships for 15 students. When a Whitmore spoke, people listened. When a Whitmore mocked, people either joined in or stayed silent. Ernesto walked past them without a word, heading into the school. He moved slowly, his gait suggesting old injuries and tired joints. The maintenance closet was just inside the east entrance. Darius knew because he'd been sent to the principal's office enough times to memorize every corner of this building. "My mum's late," Darius said, checking his messages. Nothing. She was probably at the country club, 3 martinis deep into her lunch meeting with the other society wives. His father was in Tokyo on business, again. The parking lot was emptying quickly. Most students had already left, eager to start their Friday evening. The October sky was darkening with rain clouds, and the first fat droplets began to spatter against the pavement. "Want a ride?" Kyle offered. "Nah, she'll be here." Another lie. Darius had already called her twice. But accepting a ride from Kyle would mean sitting in his older brother's hand-me-down Subaru, listening to Kyle's indie playlist and pretending to care about his college essay struggles. I'd pass. 20 minutes later, Darius was alone under the entrance awning, watching the rain intensify into a full downpour. His phone was down to 12% battery. His mother had texted, "Stuck in traffic, sweetie. 45 mins, maybe." Great, just perfect. The east door opened and Ernesto emerged, now wearing a rain jacket over his uniform. He was carrying a large black trash bag, probably cleaning supplies or lost and found items. The old man noticed Darius and paused. "Storm's getting bad," Ernesto said in his slight accent. "You have a ride?" "Yeah, my mom's coming," Darius said, not looking up from his phone. "Okay, you stay dry." Ernesto started toward his car. Darius watched him go, that uncomfortable feeling returning. The janitor moved carefully through the puddles, protecting his bag from the rain. When he reached the Civic, it took 3 tries to get the engine to turn over. The sound was painful, grinding, sputtering, barely catching. But then it did catch, and the car lurched forward with a cloud of dark exhaust. And that's when something strange happened. Instead of heading toward the exit, Ernesto's car pulled into the circular drive directly in front of the school, the passenger pickup zone. Through the rain-blurred windshield, Darius could see the old man checking his watch, then looking toward the building. Why was he waiting there? A moment later, a figure burst out of the administrative building. A kid, maybe 15 or 16, wearing a backpack and sprinting through the rain. He yanked open the passenger door of the Civic and dove inside. Even from 30 feet away, Darius could see the explosion of joy on the kid's face. The boy was talking animatedly, gesturing with his hands, and Ernesto was laughing. Actually laughing, his weathered face transformed into something warm and alive. The old man reached over and ruffled the kid's wet hair, and the boy swatted his hand away playfully, but kept grinning. His grandson, Darius muttered to himself. He'd seen the kid around school. Quiet, studious, one of those scholarship students who kept their heads down and their grades up. What was his name? Miguel? Mateo? They sat there for a moment, just talking through the rain, and something about the scene made Darius's chest tighten uncomfortably. The obvious affection between them. The way the kid's face lit up when his grandfather spoke. The way Ernesto's entire demeanor changed around his grandson. Proud, engaged, fully present. Darius's own father was probably in a business meeting right now, barely aware of what day it was, let alone that his son was stranded at school. But then the scene shifted. A car pulled up behind Ernesto's Civic. Not just any car. A Bentley Continental GT, the new model, the one that started at $250,000. Midnight blue with chrome accents, absolutely flawless. What the hell? Darius straightened up.
The Bentley's driver door opened, and a man stepped out. Even through the rain, Darius could see he was impeccably dressed. Charcoal suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent, Italian leather shoes, a watch that caught the light even in the storm. The man was maybe 50, fit and confident, with salt and pepper hair styled perfectly, despite the weather. The man walked up to Ernesto's window and tapped on it with a familiarity that made Darius's stomach clench with confusion. Ernesto rolled down the window. It cranked manually, the handle squeaking. And the moment he saw who it was, his entire face transformed. Not just a smile, pure unfiltered joy. They spoke for a moment, their words lost in the drumming rain, but their body language screamed affection. The man in the suit was grinning widely, saying something that made Ernesto throw his head back and laugh. Then, incredibly, the man reached through the window and gripped Ernesto's shoulder with obvious warmth. Darius's brain struggled to process what he was seeing. This wasn't a patron being polite to the help. This wasn't charity or pity. This was genuine connection. The grandson had noticed the Bentley too. He jumped out of the Civic, rain immediately soaking through his hoodie, and ran toward the well-dressed man with his arms outstretched. "Tio Vincent," the kid's voice carried across the parking lot. "Uncle Vincent." The man Vincent caught the teenager in a bear hug, actually lifting him off the ground despite the rain, both of them laughing. He said something in Spanish, rapid and affectionate, that made the kid beam with pride. Then he held the boy at arm's length, looking him over like he was something precious. Ernesto had gotten out of his car now, too, and Vincent immediately pulled him into an embrace. A real one, the kind that spoke of decades of history. They held each other for a long moment, oblivious to the downpour. Two men who clearly meant something profound to each other. Darius's hands were trembling as he pulled out his phone again, zooming in to get a better look at the man's face. He knew that face. Everyone in the city knew that face. Vincent Castellanos, founder of Castellanos Cybersecurity. The company he'd built from scratch in his garage 20 years ago had just sold for $4.2 billion, with a B. His face had been on the cover of Forbes 3 months ago with the headline, "From Code to Billions, the immigrant success story that's redefining tech," and he was calling a janitor his brother, hugging him like family. Darius's fingers flew across his phone screen, Googling frantically. Vincent Castellanos family, Vincent Castellanos brother, Vincent Castellanos Vasquez. The results loaded slowly on the school's spotty Wi-Fi, but when they did, Darius felt like he'd been punched in the chest, article after article, interview after interview, all telling the same story. Vincent Castellanos had immigrated from Mexico at age 8 with his mother and older brother Ernesto. Their father had died in an industrial accident. They'd arrived with nothing, literally nothing but the clothes on their backs and $87 in cash. Ernesto, the older brother, had been 19. Old enough to work, too old for school. He'd taken any job he could find to support Vincent and their mother. Janitor, dishwasher, night security guard. He'd worked 2, sometimes 3 jobs simultaneously, sleeping 4 hours a night, sacrificing everything so Vincent could stay in school. Vincent had been brilliant, everyone said so. Full scholarship to MIT, but scholarships didn't cover rent, food, books, emergencies. That was all Ernesto. Every dollar he earned went to keeping Vincent fed, housed, focused on his studies. There was an interview from 5 years ago before the company sale, when Vincent was already worth millions. The reporter had asked about his success. "My brother Ernesto is the successful one," Vincent had said. "I just wrote code. He built a life for us when we had nothing. He gave up his own education, his own dreams, so I could pursue mine. Every achievement I have is because of him. He's the smartest person I know, and if circumstances had been different, if he'd had the chances I had, he'd have built an empire that would make mine look small." Another article, from a tech blog, mentioned that Vincent had tried multiple times to get Ernesto to retire, to move into one of the luxury homes Vincent had bought. Ernesto had refused every time. "He says he likes working," Vincent had explained to the interviewer, "says it gives him purpose, keeps him connected to the community. He won't take money from me, won't live in my houses. The most he'll accept is that I pay for my nephew Mateo's education, and even then, he insisted on contributing what he could. My brother has more pride and dignity than anyone I've ever met." Darius looked up from his phone, rain now blowing under the awning and soaking his expensive sneakers. Across the parking lot, the 3 of them, Ernesto, Vincent, and Mateo, were still talking. Vincent kept gesturing to his Bentley, clearly offering them a ride. Ernesto shook his head, smiling, patting the roof of his battered Civic with obvious affection. Vincent threw up his hands in mock exasperation, but he was laughing. He said something else, then pulled Ernesto in for another quick hug before jogging back to his Bentley. As he reached his car, he turned and called out something to Mateo, who gave him a thumbs up and shouted back, "Sunday. I'll be there." The Bentley pulled away, its engine a quiet purr compared to the Civic's death rattle. Ernesto and Mateo climbed back into their car, still talking animatedly, clearly discussing whatever Vincent had said, and then Darius watched as Ernesto noticed him. Even from this distance, even through the rain, their eyes met. The old man's expression shifted, not to anger, not to hurt. Something worse, disappointment. The look a parent gives a child who should know better. Ernesto said something to Mateo, and the boy looked toward Darius too. The kid's expression was harder to read, confusion maybe. Then Mateo turned back to his grandfather and said something that made Ernesto nod slowly. The Civic lurched forward and drove past the entrance where Darius stood. As they passed, Mateo stared directly at Darius, and there was something in that gaze, not hatred, not anger, pity. A 15-year-old scholarship kid in a rust-bucket car was looking at Darius Whitmore, son of millionaires, with pity. The Civic disappeared through the school gates, leaving a trail of blue smoke that the rain quickly washed away. Darius's phone buzzed. His Instagram post, the one mocking Ernesto's car, now had hundreds of likes. The comments kept rolling in. "This is savage. Reality check far. That's someone's grandfather, you jerk. Delete this, it's mean. Nah, this is facts though." His thumb hovered over the delete button. But what would people think? That he was soft? That he couldn't take the heat? That some janitor had gotten to him? He locked his phone and shoved it in his pocket. His mother's Mercedes finally pulled up 15 minutes later, her window rolling down to reveal her perfect makeup and annoyed expression. "Sorry, sweetie, traffic was murder." Whose car was that smoking up the place? Looked like it was about to explode. "Nobody," Darius said, climbing into the heated leather seats. "Just the janitor's piece of junk." Goodness. They really should have standards for staff parking. It brings down the whole aesthetic of the school. Darius didn't respond. He stared out the window as they drove past the exit. Past the spot where Ernesto's Civic had belched its smoke. Past the point where Vincent Castellanos' $4.2 billion...
That night, Darius couldn't sleep. He lay in his room, which was larger than most studio apartments, with its own bathroom, walk-in closet and private balcony, staring at the ceiling. His phone was on his nightstand, screen dark, but he could feel it there. Could feel the weight of that post, those comments, that photo. At 2:47 a.m., he grabbed it and opened Instagram. The post now had over 1,000 likes. His follower count had jumped by 200 people. Several of his friends had shared it to their stories with their own commentary. "Why we stay in school. This is your future if you slack off." But there were other comments now, too. Newer ones. "That's Mr. Vasquez. He's actually really nice." "This is messed up. Delete it. Do you know who his brother is?" Imagine being this ignorant. Someone tell him about Vincent Castellanos. And then one comment that made his stomach turn. That janitor sacrificed everything, so his little brother could go to MIT. That brother is now worth billions. Mr. Vasquez could retire tomorrow and live in a mansion, but he chooses to work because he likes helping students. "You're mocking a literal hero, you privileged brat." The comment had 847 likes, more than some of the positive ones. Darius's first instinct was to delete it, maybe block the user. But more comments kept appearing. "My mom knows him from church. He sends money back to Mexico to help kids get school supplies. He helped me once when I was crying in the hallway. Didn't know what to say, but just sat with me. Good guy. His grandson Mateo is in my chemistry class. Smartest kid I've ever met. Full scholarship to the school. Wonder where he gets it from." Darius refreshed the page. More comments. More likes on the negative ones. His hands were shaking now. He clicked on Mateo's profile. It had been tagged by someone in the comments. The kid's Instagram was private, but his profile picture was clear enough. Matteo in a suit and tie, standing between Ernesto and Vincent Castellanos at what looked like a fancy restaurant. All three were grinning, arms around each other. The picture radiated warmth, family, love. The caption read, "Celebrating Abuelo's 70th birthday with the two best men I know." Abuelo, grandfather. Darius scrolled through the tagged photos that were public. There was Vincent at Matteo's middle school graduation, beaming with pride. Vincent and Ernesto at some kind of tech conference. Vincent in a sharp suit and Ernesto in his work uniform, both looking thrilled to be together. A family photo from what looked like Christmas. At least 15 people, with Ernesto at the center, surrounded by children and grandchildren. One photo caption caught his eye. Tio Vincent says, "Success isn't about money. It's about family, purpose, and lifting others up." Abuelo taught him that. Now I'm learning it from both of them. Blessed family first. The post was 2 years old. It had 70 likes. Darius clicked back to his own post. 147 likes now. But also 312 comments, and scrolling through them. More than half were now negative. This aged poorly when you find out who that janitor really is. Tell me you're privileged without telling me you're privileged. Someone's parents bought them a car and a personality. His stomach churned. He needed to delete it. But if he deleted it now, wouldn't that make it worse? Wouldn't people screenshot it and share it anyway? Wouldn't it make him look weak? He locked his phone and threw it across the room. It landed on his $1,000 gaming chair without a scratch. Sleep wouldn't come. At 4:15 a.m., he got up and went to his laptop, Googling more about Vincent and Ernesto Castellanos. The stories were everywhere. Business magazines, tech blogs, even a segment on 60 Minutes from 3 years ago that he found on YouTube. He watched the whole thing, his face illuminated by the screen's blue glow. The segment opened with footage of Vincent's company headquarters, a gleaming glass tower in the city's tech district. Then it cut to Vincent in his office, surrounded by awards and patents. "This company started in my garage," Vincent told the interviewer. "Just me and a laptop and an idea. But really, it started 30 years before that in my brother's hands." Cut to footage of a modest house in a working-class neighborhood. The camera followed Vincent as he walked up to the door and knocked. Ernesto answered, wearing casual clothes, looking surprised and slightly annoyed. "You said you wanted to interview me, not bring cameras into my house," he said in accented English. "Just for a few minutes, hermano," Vincent said with a grin. "I want people to understand." The camera followed them inside. The house was small but immaculate, clean, organized, filled with family photos. A modest home, but clearly loved. "My brother thinks he's successful because of me," Ernesto said, settling into an armchair. "He has it backwards." "Tell them what you did," Vincent urged. Ernesto waved dismissively. "I worked." "Everyone works. It's nothing special." "He worked 3 jobs," Vincent interjected. "For 12 years. While I was in school, he was cleaning offices at night, washing dishes during dinner rush, working construction on weekends. He slept in his car between shifts sometimes. He lost a relationship because he didn't have time to maintain it. He postponed his own life, completely put it on hold, so I could go to college." "You were smart," Ernesto said simply. "It would have been a waste for you not to go. I was okay at school, but you were brilliant. You had a gift." "You had gifts too," Vincent said, and there was an edge to his voice now, something fierce and protective. "You were smarter than me in a lot of ways. You just didn't get the chance to prove it." The interviewer asked Ernesto if he ever regretted it, if he ever wondered what his life might have been like if he'd gone to college instead. Ernesto was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled, that same genuine smile Darius had seen in the parking lot. Of course, I wonder sometimes, he admitted. But then I look at what Vincent built. I look at the technology he created that keeps people safe. I look at the jobs he's created, the families he supports, and I think I had a part in that. My hands helped build it, even if I never wrote a line of code. So no, I don't regret it. He won't take money from me, Vincent said, frustrated affection in his voice. I've tried everything. I bought a house in my neighborhood, a beautiful house, fully paid for. I drove him there, showed him around, handed him the keys. You know what he did? I gave them back, Ernesto said with a shrug. I have a house. I like my house. I like my neighborhood. My friends are there. My church is there. He works as a janitor at a prep school, Vincent continued, when he could be retired on a beach somewhere. When I could give him anything he wants. I like working, Ernesto said firmly. I like the students. I like feeling useful. Money doesn't make you happy, mijo. Purpose makes you happy. Helping people makes you happy. I tried to teach you that. You did teach me that, Vincent said softly. That's why half of my company's profits go to educational foundations. That's why we have a scholarship fund that sends kids like me, kids like we were, to college every year. Because you taught me that success isn't about what you accumulate. It's about what you give back. The segment ended with footage of Vincent and Ernesto walking through a park, talking and laughing, looking less like a billionaire and his janitor brother and more like what they were. Two men who loved each other, who had survived impossible odds together, who had built something meaningful out of nothing. The final shot was Vincent's face as he looked at his brother. He's my hero, Vincent said simply. Everything I am, everything I've accomplished, it exists because of him. And I'll spend the rest of my life trying to be half the man he is. Darius closed his laptop. The room was silent except for the hum of his air conditioning and the distant sound of his father's car pulling into the garage, coming home from whatever late-night business had kept him out. He thought about Ernesto working 3 jobs while his little brother studied. He thought about sacrificing sleep, relationships, dreams. He thought about choosing purpose over comfort, about measuring success in other people's achievements instead of your own bank account. He thought about his own father, who was rarely home, who measured everything in deals closed and properties acquired, who had missed Darius's last 3 basketball games because of important meetings. He thought about himself, laughing at a man's car, mocking his clothes, reducing a human being to a punchline for Instagram likes. His phone buzzed on. That night, Darius couldn't sleep. He lay in his room, which was larger than most studio apartments, with its own bathroom, walk-in closet and private balcony, staring at the ceiling. His phone was on his nightstand, screen dark, but he could feel it there. Could feel the weight of that post, those comments, that photo. At 2:47 a.m., he grabbed it and opened Instagram. The post now had over 1,000 likes. His follower count had jumped by 200 people. Several of his friends had shared it to their stories with their own commentary. Why we stay in school. This is your future if you slack off. But there were other comments now, too. Newer ones. That's Mr. Vasquez. He's actually really nice. This is messed up. Delete it. Do you know who his brother is? Imagine being this ignorant. Someone tell him about Vincent Castellanos. And then one comment that made his stomach turn. That janitor sacrificed everything, so his little brother could go to MIT. That brother is now worth billions. Mr. Vasquez could retire tomorrow and live in a mansion, but he chooses to work because he likes helping students. You're mocking a literal hero, you privileged brat. The comment had 847 likes. More than some of the positive ones. Darius's first instinct was to delete it, maybe block the user. But more comments kept appearing. My mom knows him from church. He sends money back to Mexico to help kids get school supplies. He helped me once when I was crying in the hallway. Didn't know what to say, but just sat with me. Good guy. His grandson Mateo is in my chemistry class. Smartest kid I've ever met. Full scholarship to the school. Wonder where he gets it from. Darius refreshed the page. More comments. More likes on the negative ones. His hands were shaking now. He clicked on Mateo's profile. It had been tagged by someone in the comments. The kid's Instagram was private, but his profile picture was clear enough. Mateo in a suit and tie, standing between Ernesto and Vincent Castellanos at what looked like a fancy restaurant. All three were grinning, arms around each other. The picture radiated warmth, family, love. The caption read, "Celebrating Abuelo's 70th birthday with the two best men I know." Abuelo, grandfather. Darius scrolled through the tagged photos that were public. There was Vincent at Mateo's middle school graduation, beaming with pride. Vincent and Ernesto at some kind of tech conference. Vincent in a sharp suit and Ernesto in his work uniform, both looking thrilled to be together. A family photo from what looked like Christmas. At least 15 people, with Ernesto at the center, surrounded by children and grandchildren. One photo caption caught his eye. Tia Vincent says, "Success isn't about money. It's about family, purpose, and lifting others up." Abuelo taught him that. Now I'm learning it from both of them. Blessed family first. The post was 2 years old. It had 70 likes. Darius clicked back to his own post. 147 likes now. But also 312 comments, and scrolling through them. More than half were now negative. This aged poorly when you find out who that janitor really is. Tell me you're privileged without telling me you're privileged. Someone's parents bought them a car and a personality. His stomach churned. He needed to delete it. But if he deleted it now, wouldn't that make it worse? Wouldn't people screenshot it and share it anyway? Wouldn't it make him look weak? He locked his phone and threw it across the room. It landed on his $1,000 gaming chair without a scratch. Sleep wouldn't come. At 4:15 a.m., he got up and went to his laptop, Googling more about Vincent and Ernesto Castellanos. The stories were everywhere. Business magazines, tech blogs, even a segment on 60 Minutes from 3 years ago that he found on YouTube. He watched the whole thing, his face illuminated by the screen's blue glow. The segment opened with footage of Vincent's company headquarters, a gleaming glass tower in the city's tech district. Then it cut to Vincent in his office, surrounded by awards and patents. "This company started in my garage," Vincent told the interviewer. "Just me and a laptop and an idea. But really, it started 30 years before that in my brother's hands." Cut to footage of a modest house in a working-class neighborhood. The camera followed Vincent as he walked up to the door and knocked. Ernesto answered, wearing casual clothes, looking surprised and slightly annoyed. "You said you wanted to interview me, not bring cameras into my house," he said in accented English. "Just for a few minutes, hermano," Vincent said with a grin. "I want people to understand." The camera followed them inside. The house was small but immaculate, clean, organized, filled with family photos. A modest home, but clearly loved. "My brother thinks he's successful because of me," Ernesto said, settling into an armchair. "He has it backwards." "Tell them what you did," Vincent urged. Ernesto waved dismissively. "I worked." "Everyone works. It's nothing special." "He worked 3 jobs," Vincent interjected. "For 12 years. While I was in school, he was cleaning offices at night, washing dishes during dinner rush, working construction on weekends. He slept in his car between shifts sometimes. He lost a relationship because he didn't have time to maintain it. He postponed his own life, completely put it on hold, so I could go to college. You were smart, Ernesto said simply. It would have been a waste for you not to go. I was okay at school, but you were brilliant. You had a gift. You had gifts too, Vincent said, and there was an edge to his voice now, something fierce and protective. You were smarter than me in a lot of ways. You just didn't get the chance to prove it. The interviewer asked Ernesto if he ever regretted it, if he ever wondered what his life might have been like if he'd gone to college instead. Ernesto was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled, that same genuine smile Darius had seen in the parking lot. Of course, I wonder sometimes, he admitted. But then I look at what Vincent built. I look at the technology he created that keeps people safe. I look at the jobs he's created, the families he supports, and I think I had a part in that. My hands helped build it, even if I never wrote a line of code. So no, I don't regret it. He won't take money from me, Vincent said, frustrated affection in his voice. I've tried everything. I bought a house in my neighborhood, a beautiful house, fully paid for. I drove him there, showed him around, handed him the keys. You know what he did? I gave them back, Ernesto said with a shrug. I have a house. I like my house. I like my neighborhood. My friends are there. My church is there. He works as a janitor at a prep school, Vincent continued, when he could be retired on a beach somewhere. When I could give him anything he wants. I like working, Ernesto said firmly. I like the students. I like feeling useful. Money doesn't make you happy, mijo. Purpose makes you happy. Helping people makes you happy. I tried to teach you that. You did teach me that, Vincent said softly. That's why half of my company's profits go to educational foundations. That's why we have a scholarship fund that sends kids like me, kids like we were, to college every year. Because you taught me that success isn't about what you accumulate. It's about what you give back. The segment ended with footage of Vincent and Ernesto walking through a park, talking and laughing, looking less like a billionaire and his janitor brother and more like what they were. Two men who loved each other, who had survived impossible odds together, who had built something meaningful out of nothing. The final shot was Vincent's face as he looked at his brother. He's my hero, Vincent said simply. Everything I am, everything I've accomplished, it exists because of him. And I'll spend the rest of my life trying to be half the man he is. Darius closed his laptop. The room was silent except for the hum of his air conditioning and the distant sound of his father's car pulling into the garage, coming home from whatever late-night business had kept him out. He thought about Ernesto working 3 jobs while his little brother studied. He thought about sacrificing sleep, relationships, dreams. He thought about choosing purpose over comfort, about measuring success in other people's achievements instead of your own bank account. He thought about his own father, who was rarely home, who measured everything in deals closed and properties acquired, who had missed Darius's last 3 basketball games because of important meetings. He thought about himself, laughing at a man's car, mocking his clothes, reducing a human being to a punchline for Instagram likes. His phone buzzed on. Principal Hartwell's office was designed to be intimidating. Dark wood, leather chairs, walls lined with diplomas and photos of distinguished alumni. Darius had been here before, usually for minor infractions that were smoothed over with a phone call from his father. This felt different. Hartwell sat behind his desk, a thin man in his 60s with wire-rimmed glasses and an expression that gave nothing away. But sitting in one of the guest chairs, to Darius's absolute horror, was Vincent Castellanos. The billionaire was dressed more casually today, slacks and a polo shirt, but he still radiated that same confidence. The quiet power that came from building empires, Mr. Whitmore, Hartwell said. Please sit. Darius sank into the remaining chair, his heart hammering against his ribs. Vincent Castellanos was here, in his principal's office, because of him. Mr. Castellanos has been gracious enough to come speak with us, Hartwell continued. I invited him after seeing the incident that occurred over the weekend. I appreciate you making time, Darius managed, his voice sounding strange even to himself. Vincent studied him for a long moment, those dark eyes seeing everything. Do you know why I'm here, Darius? Because of what I posted. About Mr. Vasquez, about my brother, Vincent corrected gently. About Ernesto. The use of his first name made it worse somehow. More personal, more real. I'm sorry, Darius said. I really am. It was stupid and cruel, and I shouldn't have. Vincent held up a hand. Let me tell you a story. When I was 8 years old, I arrived in this country speaking no English. My father had just died. My mother was devastated. We had nothing. He leaned back in his chair, his gaze distant. Ernesto was 19. He could have resented me, this little brother who needed so much, who required so much sacrifice. Instead, he became my father, my protector, my champion. He worked jobs that destroyed his body. He went without sleep, without food sometimes, so I would have what I needed. Vincent's voice remained calm, but there was steel underneath. When I got into MIT, Ernesto cried. I'd never seen him cry before. He was so proud. But I knew what it meant. 4 more years of sacrifice. 4 more years of him putting his life on hold. I tried to quit, Vincent continued. Sophomore year. I couldn't handle knowing what it was costing him. I came home for break and told him I was dropping out, getting a job, paying him back. A small smile crossed his face. He was furious. Only time I ever saw him truly angry with me. He said, You think I'm doing this so you can waste your gifts? You think my sacrifice means nothing if you throw it away? He made me promise to finish, to make something of myself, to prove that his faith in me wasn't misplaced. Darius felt like he was shrinking in his chair. So I did, Vincent said. I graduated, started a company, built something successful, and the first thing I tried to do was pay him back. Buy him a house, give him money, let him retire. He refused, Darius said quietly. He refused everything, Vincent confirmed. The house, the cars, the money. The only thing he'd accept was helping pay for Mateo's education, and even then he insisted on contributing. Do you know why? Darius shook his head. Because Ernesto doesn't measure success the way most people do. He doesn't care about houses or cars or bank accounts. He cares about purpose, about doing work that matters, about helping people. Vincent leaned forward now, his intensity focused entirely on Darius. He chose to work at this school. It wasn't his only option. I could have found him a dozen better-paying positions. But he wanted to be around students. He says it reminds him of me at that age, reminds him why he made those sacrifices. He likes helping kids who are struggling, who need encouragement, who need someone to believe in them. The office was silent except for the ticking of Hartwell's antique clock. And then, Vincent said quietly, someone took a picture of his car and mocked him online, turned him into a joke, used him as an example of failure. I didn't know, Darius said desperately. I didn't know any of this. Would it have mattered if you did? The question hung in the air. That's what Mateo asked me, Darius admitted, and I didn't have a good answer. Neither do I, Vincent said. That's why I'm here. I need to understand. What were you thinking? What did you hope to accomplish? Darius struggled for words. I wanted, I don't know, likes, attention, to be funny. At whose expense? At his, at your brother's. Why him? What did he ever do to you? Nothing. He never did anything to me. Then why? And there it was. The question Darius had been avoiding all weekend. Why did he do it? Why pick on an old man who'd never hurt anyone? Why turn kindness into weakness, hard work into failure? Because it was easy, Darius finally said, the words tasting like ash. Because he was an easy target. Because I knew no one would defend him. Because he stopped, forced himself to continue. Because it made me feel better about myself. Superior, important. Better than a janitor, Vincent said flatly. Yes. Better than a man who sacrificed everything for his family. Better than someone who measures his worth in how many people he helps instead of how much money he makes. Better than a person who chooses purpose over comfort. Each word was a hammer blow. When you put it like that, Darius said, his voice cracking, I don't sound better at all. No, Vincent agreed. You don't. Principal Hartwell cleared his throat. Mr. Whitmore, the school takes this seriously. We have a code of conduct that includes treating all community members with respect. That includes staff. I understand. However, Hartwell continued, Mr. Castellanos has asked that we handle this in a specific way. So I'm going to let him explain. Vincent nodded. I don't want you expelled. I don't want you suspended. I don't even want a formal punishment on your record. Darius looked up, surprised. What I want, Vincent said, is for you to understand. Really understand? So here's my proposal. He pulled out a folder and slid it across the desk. For the next 8 weeks, you're going to shadow Ernesto. Every day after school for 2 hours. You'll follow him on his rounds. You'll help him with his work. You'll learn what he does, who he is, what his life looks like. Darius opened the folder. Inside was a schedule, a contract, a list of expectations. You'll write a reflection paper at the end, Vincent continued. Not about what you learned about janitorial work. About what you learned about people, about respect, about the different ways success can be measured. And if I refuse? Darius asked. Then we proceed with formal disciplinary action, Hartwell said. And given the public nature of this incident and the negative attention it's brought to the school, that would likely mean suspension and mandatory community service. Or, Vincent said, you could choose to learn something, choose to grow, choose to become the kind of person who doesn't need to put others down to feel important. Darius looked at the contract. 8 weeks, 40 sessions, 80 hours with the man he'd humiliated. Why would he even want me there? Darius asked. After what I did? Because that's who my brother is, Vincent said simply. When I told him what I was proposing, you know what he said? He said, maybe the boy just needs someone to talk to. Maybe nobody ever taught him how to see people. That's Ernesto. Always giving people the benefit of the doubt. Always believing in second chances. Darius felt something hot behind his eyes. He blinked it away. One more thing, Vincent added. This doesn't leave this room. No social media. No telling your friends. This is between you, Ernesto, Principal Hartwell, and me. What you choose to share afterward is up to you. But during the 8 weeks, this is private. Okay, Darius said quietly. Is that a yes? You agree to the terms? Darius looked at the contract again. At the schedule. At the man who was offering him a way forward when he deserved nothing but punishment. Yes, he said. I agree. Vincent stood and extended his hand. Darius stood too, shaking it. The billionaire's grip was firm, his eyes searching. Don't waste this, Vincent said. My brother is offering you something valuable. Make sure you receive it. I will. Vincent nodded to Principal Hartwell and left. The door closed behind him with a soft click. Hartwell sighed. You're lucky, Mr. Whitmore. Most people don't get this kind of second chance. I know. See that you make the most of it. Starting tomorrow, 3 p.m., maintenance office. Don't be late. I won't be. Darius gathered the folder and stood. As he reached the door, Hartwell spoke again. "Darius, one more thing. That post, it told me more about you than about Mr. Vasquez. Make sure the next thing you put out into the world tells a better story." Darius nodded and left, the folder clutched in his hands like a lifeline. At 2:58 p.m. the next day, Darius stood outside the maintenance office, his heart pounding. Through the small window in the door, he could see Ernesto organizing supplies on metal shelves, bottles of cleaner, rolls of paper towels, spare light bulbs, all arranged with meticulous precision. Darius raised his hand to knock, then hesitated. What would he even say? How do you apologize for something like this? How do you face someone you've humiliated? The door opened before he could decide. Ernesto stood there, wearing his navy uniform, his weathered face neutral. For a long moment they just looked at each other. "You're early," Ernesto finally said. "That's good. It shows respect for other people's time. Mr. Vasquez, Come in," Ernesto interrupted gently. "We have work to do." The maintenance office was small but immaculate. A desk in one corner with a desktop computer from at least a decade ago. A wall calendar with notes written in neat handwriting. A mini fridge. A bulletin board covered with photos. Mateo at various ages. Vincent at company events, large family gatherings. Kids who Darius assumed were other grandchildren or nieces and nephews. One photo caught his eye. A young Ernesto, maybe 20 years old, standing next to a small boy in overalls. Both were grinning at the camera, the boy holding up a trophy of some kind. The photo was faded, the colors muted by time, but the love in it was vivid. "That's Vincent," Ernesto said, noticing his gaze. "His first science fair? 3rd grade. He built a volcano. It exploded all over the judges' table." A soft chuckle. "They gave him the trophy anyway because his explanation of the chemical reaction was so good." "He looks happy," Darius said. He was happy. "We both were, despite everything." Ernesto gestured to a chair. "Sit for a moment." Darius sat. Ernesto settled into the desk chair, which squeaked slightly under his weight. "Vincent told me what you agreed to," Ernesto said. 8 weeks, helping me with my work, learning about what I do. Yes, sir. I want you to understand something first. This isn't punishment. This is opportunity. If you treat it like punishment, you'll waste both our time. If you treat it like opportunity, you might learn something valuable." "I'll treat it like opportunity," Darius said quickly. Ernesto studied him. "Why did you post that picture?" The directness of the question caught Darius off guard. He'd expected they'd avoid talking about it. Maybe just focus on the work and pretend the incident hadn't happened. "I don't know," he started. But Ernesto's expression told him that wasn't good enough. "Actually, I do know. I thought it would be funny. I thought people would like it. I wanted validation, I guess, attention, at my expense. Yes, at your expense. And I'm sorry. Really, truly sorry. You didn't know about Vincent." "No, but like everyone keeps pointing out, I shouldn't have needed to know. It shouldn't have mattered if you had a famous brother or not. What I did was wrong either way." Ernesto nodded slowly. "That's a good answer. Better than I expected." He stood and grabbed a set of keys from a hook. "Come, I'll show you what I do." They left the office and started walking through the hallways. School had ended 40 minutes ago, and the building had that strange, empty quality. Lockers closed, lights dimmed in unused classrooms. The echoing sound of their footsteps on the tile floor. "Most people think janitors just clean up messes," Ernesto said as they walked. "And yes, that's part of it. But it's more than that. A good janitor maintains the environment, creates a space where learning can happen, where people feel safe and comfortable." They stopped at a classroom. Ernesto unlocked the door and gestured for Darius to follow. "See this?" He pointed to the windows. and these get cleaned every Thursday. Not because they're dirty, but because clean windows let in more natural light. Studies show natural light improves student focus and mood. He moved to the whiteboard. I check the markers every day. Replace the ones that are running out before teachers notice. Small thing, but it means Mr. Henderson doesn't have to stop in the middle of his algebra lesson to find a working marker. They moved to the next room, then the next. In each space, Ernesto pointed out details Darius had never noticed, the way desks were arranged to maximize movement flow. The temperature settings optimized for different room sizes. The subtle repairs, a loose chair leg tightened, a door hinge oiled, a flickering light replaced before it burned out completely. "You see all this?" Darius asked, amazed. "You see it too," Ernesto said. "You just never thought about it. Nobody thinks about infrastructure until it fails. That's the mark of good maintenance. It's invisible." They headed to the cafeteria next, and Ernesto handed Darius a mop and bucket. "Ever mopped a floor?" he asked. No. Then today you learn." For the next hour, Ernesto taught him the proper technique, how to wring out the mop so it's damp but not soaking, how to work in sections, how to move backward so you don't walk on cleaned areas. Darius's arms ached within 15 minutes. By the end of the hour, his back was screaming. "This is hard," he admitted, breathing heavily. "Yes," Ernesto agreed. "That's why it's called work. How do you do this every day?" "At your age?" Ernesto smiled. "You'd be surprised what you can do when it matters. When I was working 3 jobs, I would mop floors like this for 4 hours straight, then go work a construction site for 6 more hours. The body adapts. The mind adapts. Why did you do it? Why sacrifice so much for Vincent?" Ernesto paused in his mopping, considering the question. "Because he was my brother. Because he had a gift that would be wasted if he didn't get education. Because family means you help each other. You lift each other up. But you gave up everything. I gave up some things. I gained others. I gained pride in watching Vincent succeed. I gained purpose in knowing my work mattered. I gained the knowledge that I made a difference in someone's life, a real, substantial difference." They finished mopping and moved on to the next task, emptying trash bins throughout the building. As they worked, Ernesto talked. "You know what's funny?" he said, dragging a large bin liner from a classroom trash can. "People walk past me every day. Students, teachers, parents. Most of them don't see me. I'm just part of the scenery. The invisible janitor." "That must feel bad," Darius said quietly. "Sometimes. But sometimes it's interesting. You hear things when people think you're not listening. You see how they really are when they think no one important is watching." "What do you see?" Ernesto tied off the trash bag and looked at Darius directly. "I see kids who are struggling and pretending they're fine. I see teachers who care so much it exhausts them. I see parents who are scared they're failing their children. I see people trying their best in a world that demands perfection." They loaded the trash bags onto a large rolling cart and headed toward the dumpsters outside. "I also see cruelty," Ernesto continued. "I see kids picking on each other. I see gossip and backstabbing. I see people stepping on others to feel taller." Darius's face burned. "Like me. Like you did, yes. But not like you are. Those are different things." They reached the dumpsters, and together they heaved the bags inside. The physical labor was harder than Darius expected. His designer clothes were already stained with cleaning solution and sticky with spilled soda from the trash bins. "You know what else I see?" Ernesto said as they headed back inside. "I see potential. Every student who walks through these doors has potential. Some of them know it. Some of them are still figuring it out. Some of them will waste it. But it's always there, waiting to be discovered. Did you see Vincent's potential? When he was young, yes, but more importantly, I believed in it. I invested in it. That's the difference between potential and achievement. Someone has to believe in you enough to invest. They returned to the maintenance office. Darius checked his phone, 4:52 p.m. Nearly 2 hours had passed. 2 hours of physical labor that had left him exhausted. Ernesto sank into his chair with a small grunt. "You did good work today. Better than I expected. Really? Really? You didn't complain? You listened. You tried. Those are important qualities. Can I ask you something?" Darius said. "Why did you agree to this? To having me shadow you? After what I did, you could have just let the school punish me." Ernesto was quiet for a moment. "Vincent told me once that the hardest thing he ever did was forgive himself for not helping me more when we were young. He was just a boy, but he felt guilty that I was sacrificing for him. What did you tell him?" "I told him that forgiveness, real forgiveness, isn't about forgetting what happened. It's about believing people can change. It's about giving them the chance to be better." Ernesto leaned forward. "You made a mistake. A public, hurtful mistake. But you're 17. You're still becoming who you're going to be. I can either let that mistake define you, or I can help you learn from it." "I chose to help." Darius felt that hot sensation behind his eyes again. "I don't deserve that." "Maybe not. But that's the thing about grace. It's not about deserving. It's about giving people room to grow." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. "Same time tomorrow?" Ernesto finally asked. "Yes, sir. I'll be here." "Good. Tomorrow we tackle the bathrooms. Bring clothes you don't care about." Darius left the maintenance office and walked to his BMW. His clothes were dirty, his body ached, and his phone was full of unread messages from friends, wondering where he'd been. But for the first time in days, week 3, and Darius was learning the invisible architecture of the school. He now knew that the third-floor bathroom had a toilet that ran constantly and needed to be jiggled. He knew which classrooms had temperamental heating units. He knew that Mrs. Rodriguez in the art department always forgot to turn off her kiln, so Ernesto checked it every evening. He knew that the back left stair in the west stairwell squeaked, and that Ernesto had been requesting repair funds for 6 months. He also knew that his back hadn't stopped aching since day 1. Good pain, Ernesto had called it. The kind that means you're using muscles you forgot you had. They were in the gymnasium now, cleaning up after a basketball game. Darius was sweeping bleachers, while Ernesto mopped the court. The massive space echoed with every movement. "Tell me about your family," Ernesto said suddenly. Darius looked up from his sweeping. "What do you want to know?" "Whatever you want to tell me." Darius considered lying, painting the perfect picture of his perfect family. But 3 weeks of Ernesto's quiet honesty had made deception feel cheap. "My dad owns a commercial real estate company. He's successful, really successful. We have a big house, nice cars, all the right stuff. But I barely see him. He's always working, always on a call, always in another city for some deal. When he is home, he's distracted. I don't think he's really looked at me, like actually seen me in years." "And your mother?" "She's involved in a lot of charity work. Fundraisers, galas, committees. She cares a lot about appearances, about how things look to other people. Do you feel seen by them?" The question hit deeper than Darius expected. "No," he admitted. "I feel like an accessory. The son who's supposed to get good grades and get into a good school and make them look like good parents. But they don't actually know me. What would you want them to know?" "I don't know. That I'm not sure I want to do business. That I think about other things. That sometimes I'm lonely even though I'm surrounded by people." Ernesto stopped mopping and looked at him. "Have you told them this?" "No, they wouldn't care. Or they'd tell me I'm being dramatic. Or they'd throw money at it. Buy me something new, send me to some leadership camp, set up a meeting with a therapist. Money is easier than attention, Ernesto said quietly. Yeah, they worked in silence for a while. Then Ernesto spoke again. Vincent went through something similar. When he started making real money, people treated him differently, wanted things from him, saw him as a solution to their problems rather than a person. How did he handle it? He surrounded himself with people who knew him before the money. People who remembered when he was just a kid with a laptop and a dream. People who valued him for who he was, not what he could provide. Like you, like me, yes. And like the team he built at his company. He hired based on character first, skills second. He said technical ability could be taught, but integrity couldn't. They finished cleaning and headed back to the maintenance office. As they walked through the dimly lit hallways, Darius found himself thinking about his friends, if he could even call them that. Kyle was probably the closest thing he had to a real friend, but even that relationship felt transactional. Kyle liked being associated with the Whitmore name, with the money and status. Mr. Vasquez, can I ask you something? Of course. How do you know who your real friends are? Ernesto smiled. Real friends show up when you have nothing to offer them. They stick around when things are hard. They tell you the truth even when it's uncomfortable. He paused. They don't mock you when you're vulnerable. They protect you when you can't protect yourself. I don't think I've been a real friend to anyone, Darius said quietly. Then maybe it's time to start. Week 5 brought a revelation. They were cleaning the library when Mateo appeared. Backpack slung over one shoulder, looking for his grandfather. Abuelo. Tio Vincent wants to know if... He stopped when he saw Darius. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Hola, mijo, Ernesto said warmly. Darius is helping me today. Mateo's expression was unreadable. I can come back. No need. We're almost done. What does Vincent want? He wants to know if you're free Sunday for dinner. He's making that dish you like. The mole. The mole. Ernesto's face lit up. Tell him yes, and tell him to make extra, so you can take some home. Mateo smiled at his grandfather, but the smile disappeared when his gaze shifted to Darius. I'll tell him. See you at home. He left quickly, and Darius felt the weight of that hostility like a physical thing. He still hates me, Darius said. He doesn't hate you. He's angry. There's a difference. Will he ever forgive me? That's up to him. Forgiveness can't be forced. It has to be given freely when the person is ready. What if he's never ready? Ernesto shrugged. Then you live with that. You can't control how other people feel about you. You can only control your own actions, your own choices. You apologize, you change your behavior, and you accept that some relationships might not be repairable. That seems harsh. It's realistic. Not every mistake can be undone. Not every hurt can be healed. That's why it's important to think before you act. Words and actions have consequences that outlast the moment. They finished cleaning and sat in the library's reading area, comfortable chairs arranged around a faux fireplace. Ernesto pulled out his lunch bag and offered Darius half of his sandwich. I brought my own food, Darius said. I know. But my wife makes too much. She always makes too much. She says I need to keep my strength up. He smiled fondly. 43 years married, and she still worries I'm not eating enough. Darius accepted the sandwich, homemade, on thick bread with generous amounts of meat and cheese and vegetables. It was delicious, better than anything the school cafeteria offered, better even than most of what his family's chef prepared. This is amazing. Maria is a good cook. She learned from her mother, who learned from her mother. Family recipes passed down through generations. You seem really happy together. We are. But it takes work. Any good relationship takes work. Communication, compromise, patience. The movies make it look easy. Real life is harder, but also better. How did you meet? At church. I was working 3 jobs. Barely had time to sleep, but I still went to Mass every Sunday. My mother insisted. Maria was in the choir. They heard her singing and thought, "That's the most beautiful sound I've ever heard." Took me 3 months to work up the courage to talk to her. "What did you say?" I said, you have a beautiful voice, very original." He laughed. She said, "Thank you, but you're standing too close." I had forgotten about personal space. I was so nervous, but she gave you a chance, eventually, after she realized I was sincere, that I wasn't just looking for something casual. She saw that I was serious about building a life, about having a family. She saw past the 3 jobs and the tired eyes to the person underneath. She saw your potential. Exactly. And I saw hers. We built a life together, raised 4 children, watched them have children of their own. Vincent may have the money, but I have the wealth. Family, love, purpose, those things are priceless. They ate in companionable silence for a while. Then Darius said, "I don't think my parents have what you and Maria have." "What do they have?" "An arrangement. They're both successful, both focused on their careers and their social standing. But I don't think they actually like each other very much. They're just coexisting. That's sad. Yeah, it is. And I think I'm afraid of ending up like that. Going through the motions, checking boxes, but not actually living." Ernesto looked at him thoughtfully. "You're 17. You have time to choose a different path. But you have to actually choose it, intentionally. Life doesn't just happen to you. You shape it with every decision you make. How do I know if I'm making the right decisions? You don't, not always. But you can ask yourself, does this decision align with my values? Does it help or hurt other people? Will I be proud of this choice 10 years from now? Those questions won't give you certainty, but they'll guide you in the right direction." Darius finished his half of the sandwich and crumpled the wrapper. "Thank you for this. Not just the food. For talking to me. For not treating me like the person who posted that photo." "You are the person who posted that photo," Ernesto said gently. "But you're also becoming someone new, someone better. I'm just here to remind you that transformation is possible." The final week arrived faster than Darius expected. 8 weeks of mopping floors, cleaning bathrooms, emptying trash, listening to Ernesto's stories, and slowly understanding what he'd been missing. 8 weeks of actual work, actual humility, actual growth. His friends had noticed the change. Kyle had asked multiple times where Darius disappeared to every afternoon. Darius had deflected, honoring his agreement to keep the arrangement private. But he knew people were talking. "Darius is different," they said. "Quieter, less of an asshole." His parents had noticed too, though they didn't quite know what to make of it. His father had commented that Darius seemed more grounded, more thoughtful. His mother had asked if he was depressed. "I'm not depressed," he'd told her. "I'm just thinking about things differently." Now, it was the final day. Darius arrived at the maintenance office at 3 p.m. sharp, as he had every day for 8 weeks. Ernesto was waiting, but he wasn't alone. Vincent Castellanos sat in the guest chair, and Mateo leaned against the desk. "Family meeting," Ernesto said with a smile. "Come in, Darius." Darius entered nervously. He'd seen Vincent a few times during the 8 weeks. The billionaire made a point of visiting his brother regularly, but this felt formal, important. "Today's your last day," Vincent said. "How do you feel?" "Sad, actually," Darius admitted. "I thought I'd be relieved when this was over, but I'm not ready for it to end." "What have you learned?" Vincent asked. Darius had been dreading and anticipating this question in equal measure. He'd spent the last week working on his reflection paper, the one required by their agreement, but saying it out loud, with all 3 of them watching, felt different. "I learned that success isn't about money or status. It's about purpose." about making a difference in people's lives, even in small ways. Your brother, he looked at Ernesto, makes a difference every single day. He maintains an environment where learning can happen. He notices things no one else sees. He helps people no one else thinks to help. Go on, Vincent encouraged. I learned that privilege is a responsibility, not a right. I have advantages that most people don't have, and I was using them to hurt people instead of helping them. I was punching down instead of lifting up. He turned to Matteo, who was listening with an unreadable expression. I learned that everyone has a story. Everyone has struggles and sacrifices and moments of courage that shaped who they became. And I have no right to judge anyone based on what I can see from the outside. What else? Ernesto asked gently. I learned that real strength isn't about domination or mockery. It's about humility, about admitting when you're wrong, about changing your behavior even when it's hard. Darius's voice cracked slightly. And I learned that some people offer grace even when you don't deserve it. Even when you've hurt them, because they believe in second chances. The room was quiet. I also learned, Darius continued, looking directly at Matteo now, that some hurts can't be fixed with apologies, that forgiveness can't be forced, and that I have to live with the consequences of my actions, even if those consequences last forever. Matteo's expression finally shifted, not quite forgiveness, but something softer than anger. Understanding, maybe. I don't forgive you yet, Matteo said quietly. I'm still angry about what you did to my abuelo, about how you made him feel. I know, but Matteo paused, choosing his words carefully. I can see that you're trying to be different, that you're actually learning, not just going through the motions. That matters. Thank you, Darius said. That means more than you know. Vincent stood and extended his hand. Your reflection paper, you emailed it to me last night. I read it this morning. It's good, honest, thoughtful. You should be proud of it. They shook hands, and Vincent pulled him into a brief hug. My brother saw something in you, something worth salvaging. I'm glad he was right. Ernesto stood too, moving slower than usual. 8 weeks of working alongside Darius had been harder on his aging body than he'd admitted. I'm proud of you, Ernesto said simply. You could have treated this as punishment, done the minimum, counted down the days. Instead, you engaged, you asked questions, you worked hard, you grew. Because you taught me, Darius said, his voice thick with emotion. You showed me a different way to be in the world. I just showed you what was already inside you. You did the work of changing. They embraced Darius and the man he'd mocked, the man who'd shown him more grace than he deserved. What happens now? Darius asked. Now you take what you've learned and you live it, Ernesto said. Every day, in every interaction, you choose who you want to be. You choose kindness over cruelty, humility over arrogance, purpose over popularity. That's harder than it sounds. Yes, the right thing usually is, but you're capable of it. I wouldn't have invested 8 weeks in you if I didn't believe that. They talked for a while longer, about Darius's college plans, about summer opportunities, about staying in touch. Vincent offered to connect Darius with mentors in various fields. Matteo even cracked a small smile when Darius made a self-deprecating joke. Finally, as the sun set and the maintenance office grew dark, it was time to leave. Darius walked to his BMW, but before getting in, he turned and looked back at the school. The building looked different now, not just a place where he went to. glasses and played basketball and maintained his social status. A place where people worked, where lives intersected, where invisible hands maintained the infrastructure that everyone else took for granted. His phone buzzed. A message from Kyle. "Where have you been all these weeks? Everyone's asking what's going on." Darius thought about how to respond. He could deflect again, make up another excuse, or he could tell the truth. He typed, "I've been learning something important. I'll tell you about it soon." Then he opened Instagram, his first time on the app in weeks, and created a new post. Not a photo, just text on a plain background. "8 weeks ago, I did something cruel. I mocked someone publicly, turned them into a joke for likes and validation. I was wrong, deeply, inexcusably wrong. That person showed me more grace than I deserved. They taught me about real success, the kind measured in purpose and service, not money or status. They taught me that everyone has a story, and I have no right to judge anyone based on what I see from the outside. I'm not posting this for forgiveness or sympathy. I'm posting it because staying silent feels like cowardice. If you saw my original post, know that it reflected the worst version of me. I'm working on being better, not perfect, just better. One choice at a time." He stared at it for a long moment, his thumb hovering over the post button. This would open him up to criticism. People would call him performative. They'd say he was only apologizing because he got caught. They'd dissect his motivations and question his sincerity. But Ernesto's words echoed in his mind. "You can't control how other people feel about you. You can only control your own actions, your own choices." He pressed post. Within minutes, the comments started rolling in. Some supportive, some skeptical, some outright hostile. But also, surprisingly, some that said, "This took courage," and "Everyone deserves a second chance, and good for you, man." Kyle called immediately. "Dude, what is this? What happened?" "Long story," Darius said. "Can we talk tomorrow? In person?" "Yeah, of course. You okay?" "Actually, I think I'm more okay than I've been in a long time." He drove home, his reflection, paper on the passenger seat, his hands still slightly rough from 8 weeks of physical labor, his mind clearer than it had been in years. His father was home for once, working in his study. Darius knocked on the door. "Come in," his father called without looking up from his laptop. Darius entered and stood there until his father finally glanced up, annoyed. "What is it, Darius? I'm in the middle of something. I need to talk to you, and I need you to actually listen, not half listen while you check emails, really listen." Something in Darius's tone made his father's expression shift. He closed the laptop. "All right, I'm listening. I screwed up, badly, 8 weeks ago, and while I was dealing with the consequences, I learned some things about what matters, about what success actually means, about the kind of person I want to be." His father started to speak, but Darius held up a hand. "I'm not done. I've been watching you my whole life, watching you work constantly, miss things that matter, treat family like an afterthought. And I realized, I don't want to be you. I don't want to wake up at 50 and realize I built a financial empire but lost everything else." His father's face hardened. "Darius, I want you to teach me how to be successful in business. But I also want someone else to teach me how to be successful as a person, as a human being who values relationships and purpose and making a real difference. Can you do both? Because if you can't, I need to find other mentors." The room was silent. Then, to Darius's absolute shock, his father's eyes welled with tears. "You're right," his father said quietly. "About all of it. I've been so focused on building the business, on providing financially, that I forgot to be present. I forgot to actually be your father. It's not too late, Darius said, his own voice breaking. It's not too late to change. His father stood and pulled him into a hug, a real one, not the perfunctory embraces of obligatory family gatherings. They held each other for a long moment. "Tell me," his father said when they finally pulled apart. "Tell me about these last 8 weeks. Tell me what you learned." So Darius did. He told him about Ernesto and Vincent, about mopping floors and cleaning bathrooms, about learning to see people instead of just their surfaces, about grace and second chances and choosing who you want to be. His father listened, really listened for the first time in years. When Darius finished, his father said, "I'd like to meet him. This Ernesto Vasquez, the man who taught you what I should have been teaching you all along. I'll arrange it. And Darius, I'm proud of you, not for what you did, but for how you responded when you were wrong. That takes courage, more courage than I've shown in a long time." That night, Darius lay in bed thinking about the journey from one parking lot moment to another, from cruelty to understanding, from arrogance to humility, from seeing people as punchlines to seeing them as complex human beings with stories and struggles and quiet heroism. He thought about Ernesto Vasquez, still working at 70, still finding purpose in helping others, still measuring success in ways that had nothing to do with bank accounts. He thought about Vincent Castellanos, brilliant and wealthy, but never forgetting the brother who sacrificed everything to give him a chance. He thought about Mateo, carrying his grandfather's dignity and his uncle's drive, becoming someone remarkable in his own right. And he thought about himself, 17 years old, still figuring out who he wanted to be, but finally understanding that the choice was his to make. His phone buzzed one last time. A message from an unknown number. "This is Mateo. My abuelo wanted me to tell you that he's proud of your post. He says it takes a strong person to admit weakness. Also, I'm still angry, but maybe less angry than before. That's something, I guess." Darius smiled and typed back, "It's something. Thank you." The response came quickly. "Don't make me regret this." "I won't." Darius set his phone aside and closed his eyes. Tomorrow would bring new choices, new opportunities to be better. But tonight, for the first time in 8 weeks, he felt like he'd earned the right to rest. The janitor's car was still a rusted mess, but the man who drove it, that man was a hero, and the boy who'd learned that lesson, he was finally becoming someone worth knowing.